Okay, good morning, everybody, or afternoon. We'll give everybody just a couple minutes to get logged in and situated. We appreciate you taking the time to join us with this webinar with Choice Solutions and Nutanix. Feel free to use the chat, or I'm not sure if the chat is enabled, but feel free to use the Q&A throughout the duration of the webinar as well, and we can answer some of your questions. So, and I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Ellie Mansour. I'm the Marketing Director here at Choice Solutions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Dana Samagi.
Great. Thanks, Ellie. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you here. One of the partners on our team and co-lead up our sales organization. So just on behalf of all of us here at Choice, we're grateful that you chose time to join us today. And so kind of sticking with the theme, here's the 2023 photo of our roster. We're without our pads and helmets on, keeping with the old football theme here. But that's our team. That's our family here at Choice. I'll share just a couple minutes about us and kind of tie it in with what Dennis will be sharing on as well, and kind of go get things going. So we've got folks that are joining us, like Ellie mentioned. Maybe you're up in Nebraska or Iowa, or maybe you're in Florida or Indiana or up in Northwest in Montana. So we got folks that are joining us from all parts of the country. Our team, our people are mainly kind of in this slide here, but just where you can see where a lot of our staff and actual offices and team reside. But we've had the opportunity to work with 750 different companies over the last handful of years across 46 different states. So we got folks on here today from varying roles and responsibility levels within your organizations, varying size, varying industries. So thank you all for joining us. But outside of kind of today's topic, but one of the areas that we come in and help out a lot of our partnerships and customers is how that kind of modern workspace experience. So transitioning, whether it be how you've delivered applications, legacy applications or a virtual app or VDI, and then you're looking to modernize and leverage cloud desktops and look at DaaS and solutions like that. But the goal being is you're trying to improve the technology experience, also improve the security of your hybrid workforce and your staff, wherever they may be, giving them a consistent workspace from multiple locations. All the while, and kind of tying in with what Dennis will be sharing on today, you've got these back-end projects that your end user may not see, but this transition to modernizing applications from legacy to SaaS to maybe apps that are hosted in public cloud, or maybe things that are legacy and other variety of reasons. It makes sense for those apps to stay on-prem, and kind of adjustment in your data center approach. And kind of today, what we'll be talking about, maybe just from an enterprise storage perspective, how to transition also kind of a modernized, simple, scalable platform to help you from your enterprise storage and file systems capabilities as well. But everybody's got constraints, right? It doesn't matter how small an IT organization, how large of an IT organization, everybody's facing constraints of some type. And specific for today, maybe talk about technologies that may play a factor into helping you deal with those constraints. Maybe something that's from an administration perspective that greatly simplify the operations capabilities or the requirements on your team to adopt newer technologies without necessarily saying outsource or go to the cloud or whatever that might be. So our goal as a company is just to help kind of deliver simple, secure IT environments. And that's all the way from either the on-prem data center or the cloud service, all the way down to the secure endpoint. That's our goal as a partner and service to you as an organization. So we can help with obviously the front end, kind of learning, assessing, introducing different solutions like Nutanix here today for technology acquisition. We've got a lot of great innovative solutions that we work with and have partnered with, and a lot of trusted reputation and reputable relationships we've earned over time and over years. But we also help with unlocking and deploying these new technologies. So if a technology like today with Nutanix and their unified storage platform, it makes sense to leverage for your environment, we can help you guys unlock that, get it deployed. Maybe if it's advisory or ongoing health reviews and assessments, different things like that. For other areas like end user computing, how you're accessing, delivering applications, we can do some very advanced advisory consulting services as well in our professional services team. So a great in-house team and staff. Also, from a management, like if you have constraints, if you have gaps and you either some sort of co-managed type of partnership or relationship. That also is we're investing heavily as a business to fit that need for operational need for a lot of our clients as well. So we've got NOC staff 24/7, a lot of expertise to be able to manage different aspects of your environment, including kind of technologies we'll be talking about today with Nutanix. So just background for us with the solution as a partner. We've been working with Nutanix for 10 years now. It's been a fantastic partnership. I think one of the reasons, though, it's been a successful partnership for us and our strategy and our beliefs for our customers is it's always been about flexibility and choice for our customers. So freedom of choice has always been kind of a previous slogan that Nutanix used heavily, and that means a lot to us and kind of helping our customers not be locked into different technologies. We've invested heavily engineering staff, whether it be, again, deploying it, whether it be managing it. So throughout the life cycle, we've got a lot of expertise on the technical side to bring value to you from the beginning of your journey all the way through. With that, just a lot of sales and account reps and operations folks they're very knowledgeable of the platform as well. So we're approaching kind of 100 different unique companies that we've had the opportunity to learn and adopt and to leverage successfully for your business, and excited about today and what Dennis will be sharing just on the unified storage and enterprise capabilities for large objects, needs and use cases and things like that. So other technology partnerships we have outside of kind of Nutanix, Nutanix, Microsoft, those are kind of the main, I guess, infrastructure type of plays, if you will, as a part of our hybrid cloud and hybrid solutions that we might help others with. But then from a security, at the gateway to the endpoint and everything in between to the cloud, partnerships with Palo Alto Networks, how you're accessing things securely with Citrix, as well as simplifying the endpoints with iGel. And those are just some strategic ones. We've got a number of other partnerships as well. But in summary, these are some of the things we've got. The best thing I think we have the opportunity to offer you as a partner, hopefully, is trust and care. We've got an amazing group of people on our team with a very long tenure as a part of our organization. The quality of our people matter, the quality of our customers and the impact we're having on you matters. I think for those that haven't worked with us, I think you'll appreciate our approach and our desires in coming in and if we're a good fit, being a partner to your business. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Dennis so he can kind of get into everything else we're planning on covering today with the Nutanix unified storage and helping you guys learn there. So Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. I will turn it over to you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Dana. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and blow it up good and big so everybody can see it. And of course, it darkens my face, but we'll fix that in a second. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. My name is Dennis Arnold. I'm a channel SC with Nutanix, based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've been with Nutanix for about 5.5 years now. And I've had an opportunity to see a lot of changes at Nutanix. And I remember when I first came on board here, there were a lot of things that I really wished that Nutanix did that, interestingly enough, over a period of time, we're seeing a lot of those things. My personal wish list for Nutanix has come to fruition for the most part. And of course, Nutanix does a lot of things that I never really thought about when I first came on board. When I came here, I came over from Citrix. Hopefully, I didn't just say Citrix. Hopefully, I was saying Nutanix, because sometimes I use my old employer, which is near and dear to me, as it turns out. Still, now I want to talk to you today about unified storage, and I think that storage is kind of an interesting thing. Everybody knows what storage is, right? And everybody has heard about different types of storage. And one of the things that we do at Nutanix is we try very hard to reduce friction and we try to simplify things. But it's a complex world. And it seems like the more we learn, the more complex things seem to be. So, one of our big claims to fame is hybrid cloud, right? A lot of people are moving toward hybrid cloud. But for a lot of different reasons too, right? So you've got reasons that deal with cost, location, security. There's a lot of public clouds out there. There's a lot of fragmentation that's occurring across IT. And although these things bring forward a lot of great capabilities, there's also a lot of complexity that's being brought forward. So I kind of use this slide to show how hybrid cloud is in fact making things more complex, while we at Nutanix try to simplify things. We want to make it simple. Now, that's just kind of a brief little intro to hybrid cloud. But what I really want to get into is the data. There's this ongoing shift in the world where data is moving from a more structured format to a very unstructured format. According to the analysts, somewhere between 80 and 90% of the world's data is now unstructured. That's a lot. I'm going to get more specifically into what that means, structured versus unstructured, in a moment, because we have names for those things. But the analysts are also saying that by 2026, that's only 3 years from now, enterprises will triple their unstructured data capacity stored as file or object stores on-prem or at the edge or in the public cloud. So big enterprises tripling their data. Interestingly enough, 90% of the data that's been produced, or 90% of that 80% has been produced in just the last 2 years, right? So unstructured data is growing, and the vast majority of that unstructured data has been created just in the last 2 years. So imagine how much more data is going to be created over the next 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 10 years even. We're going to have to start finding new ways to store data, right? But the thing of it is that data still exists in disparate storage repositories, right? Different sources, different targets. This creates data fragmentation. It's very difficult to manage file shares and provision file shares. And because of this complexity, and because of the way that applications use data and the needs are being changed, the analysts say also that in the next 3 years, just in the next 3 short years, that 63% of storage management will be by non-experts. So think about that for a second. A lot of people have built their careers in certain areas, right? So you've got these storage experts that have built their careers there. But the problem is that we're trying to get rid of those people. No, I'm just kidding. That's not the case. The issue is that the nature and requirements for storage are changing. They say that storage management is going to primarily be done not by storage experts, but by app owners and project managers. These are the people who need the most storage. So we're seeing, of course, exponential growth in unstructured data. I mentioned that already. The problem is also that this comes with poor data management, a lack of insights into the data. What is that data doing? We don't know. And because of the complexity and because of the lack of insights to the data, that makes people easy targets for ransomware, for malware, for phishing, for security breaches. Remember, I've mentioned this many times on many other sessions. Complexity creates blind spots that can be exposed by bad actors. So integrated security, of course, is now a top IT goal. And we're doing all kinds of interesting things to make sure that people, the human effect, does not expose the organization to security breaches, right? I'll give you an example. Yesterday, at the end of the day, my wife said, I had to do the security training. I clicked on the link that said, oh, urgent, you need to change your password. Click on this link right now, right away. So she clicked on it and bam, she got signed up for security training. I've done it before myself. It's a very clever thing, but it's smart. It's good for companies to do that. It's good for companies to have that mandatory training. In fact, we don't want to just give information away. I found a book yesterday that it's all about selling your personal data for nefarious use. That book, it's called Facebook. No, I'm just kidding. That wasn't a real book that I read. But legacy is complex. We know this, right? And Nutanix is trying to solve for this. And a lot of the elements that a lot of the complex issues that come by way of complexity and storage are inefficient storage silos. That's one of the things that we really, really go after with unified storage. All of the expertise that's required for building and managing and maintaining. And like I said, we're not trying to put the storage experts out of business. The problem is that storage experts are becoming fewer and farther between. This idea that we have to hire all of these experts to do all of these siloed things, that's kind of going away because that creates and drives more complexity. We're trying to converge systems and combine management. Right. So we don't want a bunch of individual specialists. And again, those folks are just hard to find nowadays when we do need them. Okay. So operational consistency, that's a big one. Data resiliency. You can see the slide here. This is kind of the basic look at how we sort of push data around, right? Data goes on a difficult journey. When data goes on a difficult journey, we call that a hard drive. No, I'm just kidding. You know, I was going to have to throw in some dad jokes if you've ever been to any of my sessions. But at Nutanix, we tie it all together. It's very solution focused. We have this thing called the Nutanix Cloud Platform with a couple of very distinct tiers. The cloud infrastructure is the infrastructure tier. Cloud management is the management tier. But something that sits over the top of all of that is unified storage services. And this is something that's very unique with Nutanix. Nutanix is the only company that makes hybrid multi-cloud simple and cost-effective. Our platform is very powerful, and it takes complexity out of day-to-day operations and allows people to seamlessly access, protect, and secure their apps and data. So this is what our entire stack looks like. Now, as we drill into specific data types, I like to use parking as this little animated thing as an example for how we describe these different types of data. So when we look at block storage is like this very strictly reserved parking where all the parking spots are booked in advance. And if you don't have a booking for a parking spot, if you don't have a reserved data location, you can't park there. And this is typically used in the real world for things like databases where they have a very rigid structure and the data must conform to a certain format, right? And so I refer to this as information in formation, right? Information in formation, very rigid. That's block storage. That's volumes in the Nutanix terminology. Now, file storage over on the left, or NAS storage, as we more frequently refer to it, it's less strict, and you could store pretty much any type of file in file storage. But file storage has a very specific hierarchy of directories, and so that data, it has to be located in this hierarchy. And as we create more data that is file-based data, we have a greater and greater file path, and it becomes more and more difficult to actually find that data. You remember that Windows, as an example, starts having trouble when the hierarchy or the directory structure gets to more than like 256 folders. So we have limitations that we can't get past in terms of complexity. And the example that I like to use here is you're in a big hurry, you go to the airport, especially DFW airport. If you've never been there, there's different distinct terminals. You drive over there, you're in a hurry, you don't want to miss your flight, you know you're going to have to spend an hour in line with security, unless you're TSA pre, which I am not, by the way. I should get that. You park your car, you jump out, you grab your stuff, you go into the airport, and all you're thinking about is getting to your destination. Well, guess what? You get there, you spend a week, 4 days, and then you get back. And what have you forgotten? You've forgotten what terminal you left in. You forgot totally where you parked your car. right? So now you got to go find it. And sometimes that can be a difficult exercise. I've been through that. So if you were to look at the pictures on my phone, you would see a lot of pictures of, you know, E15 level D or whatever. I take pictures of where I park my car so I can find it. That way I don't have to think about that. Now, object store is more like valet parking, right? You don't have to worry about where your car is in this big garage. You just show it up, you drop it off with a worker, which is actually an objects term. You've got workers and they take your car and they go put it somewhere and they index it, right? So you don't have to worry about where it is. You just show up and you say, I want my car. And similarly with object data, an app, a service just shows up and says, here's the data. Go put it somewhere. I don't care where you put it, just put it wherever. And then they come back and they say, I want my data. So go get my data. And those are concepts that we use for object storage. Now, traditionally, you would use different storage platforms, completely different storage platforms, and or different storage vendors for these different storage types. But with Nutanix, you have the option for a single platform for all of the different storage types, and that brings a great deal of value. So it facilitates the run anywhere, it facilitates security, it facilitates flexibility. You can deploy in various different models. You'll notice here that you've got different folks who can use the different types of data. So dev uses it one way, ops uses it another way. You can deploy Nutanix infrastructure as hyperconverged or Nutanix storage as hyperconverged with the apps running on the same platform, or you can deploy Nutanix storage or unified storage as dedicated storage with independent app servers. And so my point here is that I often hear this idea that, well, maybe Nutanix isn't a good fit because we just need a server refresh. Nutanix is a good fit for just the server refresh. Or Nutanix isn't a good fit because we just need storage. Nutanix is a good fit just for storage. I can create a dedicated Nutanix storage array that just services a particular type of storage or multiple types of storage. Remember, it's flexible and its consumption model is flexible. Its scalability is massive, starting small. I'm going to touch on that a little bit more later. Start small and grow. A security first design and integrated data services. And that's where really a lot of our focus is going to be today. So we take that and we extend it to multiple types of workloads, right? So we don't want to limit ourselves to specific types of workloads or even for specific types of storage. We want to be able to have a degree of flexibility, and we facilitate that by supporting different storage mechanisms. You'll notice that we can leverage storage at the edge. That's where most of the data is coming from, is the edge. The AI-powered devices, they're creating data, and we've got to be able to do something with that data. But the data is created on the edge, so it has to be stored on the edge, analyzed, and then perhaps centralized at some point. We provide high-performance storage in the form of all NVMe. We provide storage for dense all-flash, big data. It's got to be accessible, it's got to be fast, and it has to be able to scale in a significant way. Also general purpose storage, right? Home directories, profile directories. Many of you are probably VDI shops, right? Where you have virtual desktop infrastructure. These things will probably make sense to you. General purpose storage can also be used as backup targets. And then things that are very capacity heavy, like video surveillance, media repositories, archiving data. This is analogous to unstructured object-based data. Okay, now you've got a place to put the data. You've got various different types of data that you can facilitate, storage platforms that you can deploy. Now you got to do something with the data. So now that we have the raw data covered, along with use cases, performance, and scalability, we have to consider data services. These include things like data lifecycle, right? You've got to be able to manage the lifecycle of the data through tiering, archiving, data insights, global access to the data. This all falls into data lifecycle. Data protection is another important thing. And remember that we're not tacking on products here to do these various things. This is all stuff that Nutanix does natively. So snapshots, replication, synchronization, metro availability, disaster recovery, all built in to the Nutanix platform. Also, with respect to data security, very, very important. We're going to drill into this a little bit farther. Anti-ransomware, we've got all the industry certifications, and you'll notice that the storage services that facilitate all of this are very inclusive: block storage, file storage, and object storage. So we're not building silos. We can consolidate all of this for decreasing complexity. And you'll notice that you've got different types of people that access the data up here. You've got the application owners, right? That's going to be a big one moving forward. Security administrators, storage administrators, data scientists. The role of a data scientist is spent 80% of the time preparing the data, 20% of the time complaining about the preparing the data. I'm just kidding. I don't know any data scientists, but I saw that funny little anecdote. And the data science motto: if at first you don't succeed, call it version 1.0. So we can leverage the power of your data anywhere, right? I mentioned this before. It can go on the edge, it can go in the data center, it can go in the cloud, right? So Nutanix unified storage is simple and it's intelligent. It deploys in minutes. Literally, you can deploy files in minutes. You can deploy objects in minutes, which goes back to a concept that I mention all the time: time to value. That's a big one for me. You don't want to spend a lot of time creating something before you can actually use it. So time to value is your ability to make technology usable. And that includes simplifying management. With intelligence in our system, we have one-click insights, one-click remediation. If there's a problem and the system can't fix it, we can one-click fix it. Another thing that people really, really like are, the massive ability for scalability, or massive scale, right? Not everybody takes advantage of massive scale, but you know that you can start small and you can scale in different ways: scale up, scale out, deploy anywhere. Multiple hypervisor support, right? We have AHV support and we have VMware ESX support. And all of this is enterprise class, not only built for the enterprise, but enterprise class, enterprise grade features that everybody gets to take advantage of. So you can focus on the what, when, and where you need storage, not the minutia of managing it, okay? Now, combined with comprehensive data protection and disaster recovery, we've got this great solution. When we're talking about disaster recovery, when we're talking about data protection, remember that was sort of that middle tier that I talked about. We have what's called Smart DR, Smart Disaster Recovery. Smart DR is kind of an interesting thing because what this does is it facilitates shared level data replication that's showing here. And I'll sort of bounce back and forth between these slides because this is one with a bit of, it flips back and forth. It's not really animation. But in the event of a planned or unplanned loss of service, you can actually restore write access to protected file shares by failing them over to some recovery site or some recovery file server. And so what we're saying here is the protection policy indicate the failover details. So we have a protection policy that tells us what's going to happen in the event of a disaster or some outage, if you will. It tells us what the primary location is, the secondary location, and the details for failing over, right? So instead of having a single protection policy for an entire file server, you can configure unique protection policies just for the different shares. We combine that with a very short recovery time objective, which helps ensure continuous availability of your data, right? That, of course, then ties into Active Directory and domain name services to facilitate seamless client redirection. So there's an outage and there's an automatic failover, and we use policies to handle that. Okay. So complete SLA protection, or complete SLA-based protection. There's a lot of elements here, right? There's file metro availability. Not everybody will use metro availability. Metro availability is for when you have near sites with very low latency between the two, and also oftentimes this is used with what we call synchronous replication, where everything is fully synchronized in real time. The core of Nutanix data protection is based on file snaps. And when I say file snaps and server snaps, storage snaps, this snapshotting is done at the storage level. It's not done at the VM level. So we don't have to stun a VM. We don't have to put a VM to sleep in order to take a snapshot of it. We just take it right from the storage, so the VM continues to operate. The file share sync, I just talked to you a little bit about that. For those of you who use VDI, you'll recognize the value here. And cloud object replication. This is a new one for us, where it gives us the ability to replicate multiple Nutanix or public cloud based data to S3 buckets for distributed protection. And S3 and objects are synonymous with one another. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. File and object locking, very important. So all of these things, very important to the data protection story. But let's talk a little bit more about objects. So I mentioned previously that a lot of data is being generated at the edge. That data includes AI, ML, big data at the edge, and cloud native data in the cloud, which is kind of out in the edge if you're talking centralized data center. But they all have different requirements. Right, cloud native, it requires rapid updates. It's got to be lightweight. It's got to be portable. Portability is a big thing, because when you look at public cloud, you've got to realize that data in one public cloud may not necessarily be portable to some other public cloud based on the nature of that data. So there's all this data being collected. You've got meter readings, sensor readings, app logs, images, videos, social media, email, bank transactions, the stuff on your watch, all of it being collected at the edge, right? Now, I tell you, when the machines take over the world and the machines finally rise up, based on the fitness data on my watch, I think that they will realize that I am personally not a threat to them, but they probably already know that, since the machines keep calling me day after day, trying to sell me funeral insurance. And I'm like, why are you trying to sell me funeral insurance? Do you know something that I don't? Have the bots had a look into the future? Did they find the Indiana Jones dial thing and go back in time? I don't know. I'll stop trying to tie all that stuff together. But a lot of data is being collected, and it's filling up the data lake, right? So modern apps need a different type of storage. They need storage that's fast and responsive, that could scale to in massive ways. Petabyte, like a petabyte of data, is something that's hard for me to get my head around. It's like $1 billion. Like I don't live in that world. But it has to be easily managed. So when you're thinking massive scale and you're thinking easily managed, these things seem to be a little bit counterintuitive, right? This is where objects comes in. These things need object storage, unstructured storage, right? So object storage has what all of these modern apps need. Now, remember that object storage is unstructured. So it's not accessible in the same way as block storage and file storage. Instead, data is accessed when we're talking specifically about object storage. Data is accessed and retrieved through a simple protocol, HTTP. We all know what that is. And it leverages gets and puts. So it's go get data or put data and go get data, put data, get data, put data, get data. It's not worried about locations and parking spots and things like that. And that data is then stored in buckets. A bucket is directly accessible by an application. And then the indexing is leveraged by object workers. So when we take a look at the way modern apps function, and this becomes very, very important when you decide to start refactoring applications, getting new applications. How am I going to manage and store data for these new applications? It's not going to be, the future is not VM based with vDisks. The future is really, as far as apps go, microcode in containers with persistent storage, right? So another way we reference object storage is S3. You may have heard of these terms, S3, buckets, blob storage. In this particular example, the applications and the containers have direct access to the storage through a protocol. This is a fairly new one called or driver, if you will, container object storage interface. It used to just be, or technically it still is, container storage interface, and that's just a set of drivers that are used for containers to access storage. But object storage is going to be the future of that type of application data and that access, right? Containers do need storage, just like virtual machines need storage, but containers need persistent storage that's not always a part of the container itself. Unlike a VM that has a vDisk that just grows and grows, that's only accessible to that one VM. Containers can be spun up and spun down based on the code in the container and still have to have access to that same data, that blob of data. Remember, and I can only do that if I should say, I can't do that if the container needs an address to the data, right? That's a big difference. A VM needs address to a data or access to a data, but to the data. And so that's kind of a block term, but an application just wants data. Hey, give me data. And it's the worker, it's the valet who goes and gets the data and provides it. Okay. So when we look at container store or container object storage interface, you'll see that this provides access to the storage in an automated fashion, as opposed to the traditional method of having to carve out segments of storage manually. It also supports quotas, that's important, and access controls for the apps and developers. Remember that statistically, in about 3 years, 63% of storage management will be done by non-experts. There are your non-experts, the app owners and the project managers. Okay, very, very, in my opinion, interesting, but important to the future of storage. Another thing that's important to the future of storage is the fact that you're going to have multiple object stores that need to be combined under a single namespace. Remember, you may not always be able to decide where the app lives, in which case you may not be able to decide where the data lives. So we need to have a mechanism to provide the storage for the apps, to provide the data for the apps, but still have it under control, right? And we do that with Nutanix objects. It has the ability to exist under a global S3 namespace. So the data literally can be anywhere and be indexed regardless of its location. And we can use, as an example, the Nutanix objects browser, which of course is part of Nutanix Unified Storage objects, to define where we want to put data in many cases. So the object browser or the objects browser provides that single view of buckets in different locations. So we're really just kind of looking at where that data exists, allows us to do searching, access, sharing, and visualization. All very important. In the meantime, we can start to tier stuff off to public storage, to public cloud storage, right? So data tiering becomes very, very important. But hey, guess what? You're going to need a bigger bucket, right? Because as I mentioned, the data is growing and growing and growing exponentially. And so from a management perspective, we use something that you're very familiar with already. If you're already a Nutanix customer, we use Prism. Prism is our single pane of glass management. And we use that for managing this data. Now, we've kind of taken that a step further, and we've introduced a product called Data Lens that we're really going to get into. Now, Data Lens does not replace Prism Central. Data Lens takes a lot of the functionality and features of Prism Central and file analytics and object storage and ties that together into what we refer to as a single data lens. And so we're going to start sort of diving into what Data Lens is and what it's functionally capable of. So I mentioned tiering already. Deep data insights are essential to providing advanced tiering possibilities. You're probably already familiar with the way Nutanix hyperconverged tiers data. It does it automatically on the individual hyperconverged nodes, right? So we have the concept of hot data, warm data, and cold data. And in many cases, this is done to ensure that the expensive data or the expensive data is on expensive storage and cheap data is on cheap storage. So we want to make sure that expensive, aka NVMe, is used for that hot performant data, whereas spinning disks, S3 storage, objects is used for, say, archiving or used for cold data, right? Because we don't want to use that expensive NVMe storage for storing cold data, right? That doesn't make sense. Now, Data Lens gives us the ability to do some advanced tiering or smart tiering, as we call it. Now, remember that data storage in and of itself is physical. It has to be stored somewhere. And could we potentially run out of space for storing data? Yes, absolutely, because it's a physical thing. Now, I recently read that scientists have started to figure out how to store data in glaciers, right? Because, I mean, when you run out of cloud storage and you run out of data center storage, what do we have a capacity, or what do we have a lot of where we can store data? Glaciers. In fact, they have a new nomenclature for data that gets stored in glaciers. It's not a petabyte or a terabyte. It's a frostbite. But you have to be careful when you're storing frostbites, because remember, glaciers, they float on the ocean. And you don't want the glacier to melt and have all your data fall into the ocean, because when data falls into the ocean, or you put data in the ocean, it starts sinking. So just keep those two concepts in mind as you explore this data storage in glaciers, frostbites. Now, with Data Lens, we've taken some of that Prism Pro stuff and some of that old Beam stuff, right? Prism Pro, Beam, intelligent operations, cost governance, and we pulled that also into Data Lens to apply specifically to your data. So with what we can do now is your storage subsystem now can be analyzed. So we can provide you with capacity runway for storage. Like, let's say you have a dedicated files cluster or a dedicated objects cluster, and let's say that's on-prem, or maybe that's in the cloud. We do capacity runway against that. We can do performance optimizations against that, rebalancing, scaling up, scaling out. These are things that can be done with intelligent operations. Oh, out of space, what do? You get more, and you do it automatically. We can also create quota limits. We can create runbooks. We can increase the file server capacity, or we can increase the file server compute availability, right? So scaling out or scaling up, done automatically. And then finally, we can do visibility into your historical spend on files and objects at the cluster level. So with this, we can enable financial reporting at a cost center level, because guess what? Sometimes organizations are broken into cost centers, right? There's not always a single IT budget for all IT. Sometimes a business unit, application development, they have their own cost center. So we want to make sure that they're charged accordingly for the data that they're using, and make sure that if quotas need to be applied, quotas can be applied based on cost centers. So, although intelligent tiering is awesome in and of itself, as I just mentioned, Data Lens does way more than that. It takes all of the file analytics information from multiple clusters and allows us to do security and management across those, which is kind of cool because now I don't have to manage data and manage security as separate entities. I've now tied that together into Data Lens. So the Data Lens value is building. Okay, now in order to secure something with Data Lens or with anything else, you got to know where it is. You got to know what it's doing. You got to know who has access, and you got to know what people are doing with that access, with that data, and so on. Got to have visibility in order to apply security. So you've got to have all of these things that you know about that data. You got to know how to classify the data. You got to understand data history and aging. Audit details, that's a big one. For pre and post hacking attacks, always important. Malware blocking and detection, that's an important one. Data Lens does that for us. And it's particularly important for unstructured data, because thus far unstructured data has been kind of the wild west of data, these blind blobs, as we call them, right? The storage that just keeps adding up and adding up. Like, it reminds me of my guest bedroom closet where I store things, and I inevitably every couple of years have to go into the storage closet, because it's like you pop it open, you're like, I'm going to put these, old bow and arrow kit or whatever, I don't know why that came to mind, in my storage closet. And you look in there, you're like, oh, look at all these boxes, I better take some stuff out, otherwise this stuff's not going to fit. And you pop one of those boxes open, and oh, there's a box of Legos. Oh, there's a box of markers. You pop this one. Oh, this one has markers and Legos and a sock. How did that get there? I don't know. My point is that you got to move it out to make space. But if we had intelligent tiering, well, that helps us out quite a bit, especially for the unstructured data. So it's not just about visibility and control, but about intelligence. You have the knowledge of your data. Now you need to put it to use. You've got to analyze the data storage, the consumption rates, and the growth. You can increase efficiency of the data by identifying the old data, the infrequently used data, and tier that off automatically. And you can create policies that help you define how that data is tiered, right? And data is a little bit like people. If you interrogate the data hard enough, it will tell you whatever you want to know. So data interrogation, okay, just like people. My sisters, they used to gang up on me. My younger sisters, I have younger sisters, they would gang up on me, and they would pretend that they were, well, if we were in the pool, they would grab a hold of me and they kept dunking me on the water, and they would say, tell me everything you know. And it was a funny thing that we would do. I think I could take them both now, but they used to be a lot stronger than me. Anyway, you can do a lot of things when you have lots of insights about your data, but you don't have to waterboard your data. You don't have to dunk it in the pool and hold it underwater. You don't have to pull its fingernails out. When you have all of that insight there available for you, when you have a tool like Data Lens that can give you data about your data and unlock massive amounts of value. But that's great. Remember, though, we were talking about security. So you have all these insights about your data and the ability to protect it. So Data Lens gives you security and protection. It detects day zero attacks. It assesses risk. It helps with data lifecycle management. We talked about that, auditing and compliance. This is a subscription-based service, this Data Lens. It is a thing, but it's very important. You've got to protect the data. I do have a whole different talk track on ransomware and protecting the data. I'm just sort of incorporating elements of that. But it's important. I harp on this all the time. Unprotected data makes the nightly news, right? Unprotected data will make you famous. And that's a bad thing in this particular case. And in some cases, unprotected data can put people out of business. I read an article yesterday about companies that literally sustained losses that were so great by way of ransomware and hacking attacks that they literally had to go out of business. They had to file for bankruptcy. They had to sell off all their assets. They simply could not recover from those attacks. And in hindsight, it's always avoidable. And so you don't want to get caught up in that trap. The good thing is that data lens, which if you're a Nutanix customer, you're already entitled to it. I'll explain more about that in a moment. It has a detection engine. It has a remediation engine. It has a recovery engine that uses recovery plans, immutable storage via objects. All of this ties together into a comprehensive security plan without the addition of a bunch of third-party products, right? So this is what I call a solution, not a bunch of stuff cobbled together. And you get a free trial of it, right? How cool is that? We're literally going to give it to you as a part of some other purchase, right? So unlock more, pay less. So we have this data lens free trial. It allows you to choose between the premium tier with robust ransomware capabilities or the free tier with a lot of essential reporting and auditing features. And so this makes sure that you're able to tailor your security posture and your data analysis according to your needs and according to your risk tolerance, right? Again, it's first year for free. Let me explain how this works. If you have Nutanix Unified Storage right now, you can enable this data lens. And when you enable it, you will get the premium level of data lens right out of the gate for a year. After that 1 year is up, you can renew it or you can not renew it. If you don't renew it, the feature set drops down to the free version. So you get to kind of try before you buy here. I know that if you're a MSP customer with Choice, you'll be happy to know that Choice leverages Data Lens to help keep you safe, to help protect your data. If they're hosting your data, if they're keeping a watchful eye over your data, they have a great security practice too, by the way. So you can see that there's a lot of business value to Nutanix Unified Storage. Now, with that said, if free data lens doesn't get your attention, perhaps we can entice you with an ROI tool, something that might allow you to compare what you've been doing with your old data configuration, your old data platform, and compare that to what you could be doing. And I would say that this is something that your awesome partner, Choice, can definitely help you with. Even though it's a self-service tool, let Choice help you sort of analyze what you've been doing with and compare that to what you could be doing. And, you know, we talked about a lot of big enterprise stuff, massive scale. Maybe some of you are thinking, I'm not that big. My data is not that important. Well, I would wager that your data is important. And a lot of times we recognize the importance of the thing when we don't have it anymore, right? So we want to help you protect your data. But you don't have to start with petabytes and frostbites of data. You can start small, like a lot of our customers have started small. And I would say that the vast majority of our customers have started small, right? You don't have to go big or go home. You can start small. You can start really small because we give you that 1 TB of unified storage entitlement and analytics or data lens. Kind of similar things. File analytics, data lens, they kind of tie together. But a lot of customers like it. All of these customers started small. None of these customers that you see on this list started with vast amounts of data running on Nutanix Unified Storage. They sort of just grew into it. We got a couple of customers. Choice has a has a couple of really big ones that went big right from the very beginning, but they're not on this list because of that. These customers all started small. A couple of these folks are local to me. And so here's our vision, right? As far as data goes, world domination. I'm just kidding. Our vision is not world domination. In fact, I look at this and I see run simple, run secure, run everywhere, run unified. What is this? An escape plan? Maybe it is. Escape from complexity, perhaps. We're running complexity out of business because you don't have time for all that complexity, right? So we do all of these great things in this unified storage platform to help make your life from an IT perspective anyway. I can't get into your personal business, but your life from an IT perspective becomes easier with all this stuff. So simplifying the previous slide, here's the simplified view and a suggestion. Focus on data management, not on data storage. I'm sorry, focus, I didn't even read it right. Focus on data management, not on storage management. The storage, we got that for you, right? Data management, up-level your data management, up-level your visibility, up-level your security. And you can try it, right? If you don't have it already. I mentioned the Data Lens promo, 1 year free of that. Go to Nutanix Test Drive, just Google Nutanix Test Drive. There's all kinds of interesting things you can try out there. You can see how it works. You can get hands-on with the management of it and deploying an object bucket and things like that. You'll see how easy it is, right? And remember, I'll leave you with this little bit. Well, first of all, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your attendance. I thank you for your patience with me and your willingness to kind of stick through the dad jokes. Speaking of dad jokes, you might have been writing those down so you can repeat them later. But when it comes to dad jokes, when you have a certain number of them, you've got to store them somewhere. And what's the best place to store a dad joke? In a database. So keep that in mind. All right, everybody. I appreciate your time and attention. I'm going to turn back over to Dana for some parting thoughts, and I'll look and see if we have any questions. Thanks, everybody. That was
the
fun.
grand finale. There you go. So yeah, no, thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Thank you all for your time and joining us today. Like Dennis shared, I mean, this is applicable regardless of the size of the file storage in your environment. You know, we did have the opportunity, and we're very grateful. One of our customers shared at Nutanix's recent .next conference for their environment, for their organization, kind of the solution they went with. You know, it was on the larger side. There's a couple petabytes across 2 different sites, and a lot of things that Dennis just went through were big reasons why they made that determination to invest in Nutanix and through choice solutions. But just a couple things, yeah, visibility into the data, the recoverability, failover, failback was something also that was a huge factor for our customer, this particular customer, and their decision to go invest in Nutanix for that need and that use case for the very large objects environment that for them needs to stay on-prem, as well as some of the other security and encryption capabilities. So again, you don't have to be petabytes in size. If it's 5, 10, 100 terabytes, your use case and scenario might be. I just encourage you to really look into what Nutanix is doing here. Our team is very big proponents of the files capabilities and the unified storage of what Nutanix is doing here, and obviously the underlying platform and the scalability, performance, the customer experience, and the customers receive. Obviously, Nutanix has earned a tremendous reputation on customer experience and delight. So we're up on the hour, and we'd love the opportunity to help you guys tackle these enterprise storage challenges you might be thinking about for the future. So thanks again, Dennis. Thank you all for your time, and have an awesome day.
Thanks, everyone.